How can you build those strong relationships, make sure that's realized?
I think it starts with that element of trust.
Did you know that 80% of new businesses fail within the first 5 years? That's a frickin' sobering statistic, isn't it? Especially if you're in the first 5 years of your business. But what if I told you that many of those failures could have been prevented with a strong, compelling brand? I'm Deirdre Martin, your host, an award-winning and triple certified business coach. I've seen firsthand how a powerful brand can transform a struggling business into a thriving one. And I'm talking about my own business here. And that's why I'm thrilled to have Andy Starr on the show today. Andy is an award-winning brand architect and the co-founder of Level C, a company that's redefining the way we think about branding. He's here to share his insights on how to build a brand that not only resonates and attracts their ideal clients, but also stands the test of time. So if you're in business beyond 5 years, this is for you too, my friend. In this episode, you're going to discover some of the secrets that Andy shares about crafting a brand that resonates with your ideal client, sets you apart from the competition, and fuels your business growth. So get ready to elevate your brand and unlock your full potential. Before we get into the nitty-gritty, do me a solid. Please go and hit that follow button and leave us a review. Your support means so much to me and my team who helped bring this podcast together. Right. Let's welcome Andy Starr to the Master Your Business podcast.
Andy Starr, what a pleasure it is to have you on the Master Your Business podcast. Welcome.
Oh, you say that now. We'll see how you feel in 20 minutes.
Yeah, great to see you too. You're so welcome. It's such a pleasure to have you here. Every time we've met before, you've been the one doing all of the talking, and that's the intention today too. I'm going to ask you questions and get you doing loads of talking. So tell us a little bit about you and your business, Andy, first and foremost.
Oh, I mean, what to say about this business that you don't already know for yourself and can probably describe better than I can. And remember, you heard me say that, right? Like, I can tell you about my business, but I can't tell you anything about my brand. So for your audience, if your audience cares more about this brand, they should be talking to you. If they do care about the business, our business is in a funky intersection of education, professional education, and business and brand. It's weird, it's funky, it's thrilling, it's exciting, it's never boring, because those are three kind of unique playgrounds that are always evolving, especially education. And that's, at the end of the day, Marty and I think of ourselves as an education company, right? If you really forced us to pick one, that's where we are. It's extremely volatile, a lot of uncertainty, a lot of nuance, right? Education means different things to different people. People learn in different ways. There are nuances based on age, experience, culture, all of those things. So it's uniquely challenging, but that's what keeps it fresh. And for us, we're just never bored in what we're doing. That's our space. And our business is teaching professionals, global professionals, how to think and how to think about brand. That's the foundation, and how they can use that to think more broadly about their business, right? That's what we're making trouble in these days.
And I would go so far as to say, and this has been my experience as a student of yours, Andy, it's thinking. And people say think outside the box, but I actually really hate that phrase. I think you need to think that what if there was no box? How would you think then? And that for me is a little bit of what I've learned from working with you. But so tell us, how did your business start, Andy?
The short version is I got tired of doing kind of creative and communication agency work. It just wasn't rewarding. It was thankless, terrible. And so I kind of walked away from agencies and was floating around, consulting, doing things like that, trying to figure out what I wanted to be when I grew up. even more. And I landed with the startup that was playing with some ideas that were that had some connective tissue to what Marty and I are doing now. And through one of those projects, I had a reason to reach out to this guy who wrote these books and had this reputation as being a global expert in branding. And we were going to pilot some things with Marty. And when the startup kind of collapsed on itself because it wasn't properly structured, it wasn't properly funded, and it didn't have the right people leading it, Marty and I just found ourselves continuing to talk, and we were like, oh, that would have been a really cool idea. And what if we had done it this way? And what if we tried something like this? And what if you and I just tried to do it ourselves? And eventually, Marty, I woke up one day to a message, and Marty was just like, we should just do this ourselves. We should just try it. And I was just it was literally the right day for him to ask something like that of me. I think if it had been any other day where my life was any different at the time, it wouldn't have worked. It wouldn't have made sense. But on that day, it did. And I said, okay, we tried it. And that's literally what this whole thing has been, just a 5-year prototype, a 5-year experiment. And this is literally just how it played. We didn't know what it would be. We didn't know if or how it would make money. We anticipated that it wouldn't make anything and that we would try it for a little bit and then just go our separate ways and do something else. And here we are. And I think one of the reasons why it's played out that way is because we kept ourselves cool about it. I don't really know how else to describe it other than that, but it played out in large part because we just found ourselves practicing what we've come to preach. Okay. But we didn't realize it at the time. We had to get there and then get here to be able to look back and say, no, that's what it was. And that's how it's played out this way. So who knew?
And so a large part of your business is collaborating with Martin Neumeyer, right? And probably others too. And I suppose what I'd love to hear is for people listening, is that like a lot of the people listening work by themselves, Andy, and they don't partner with anybody or collaborate with anybody. But so much of branding and doing anything in brand involves collaboration. So when you're collaborating with somebody, or even with your collaboration partnership with Marty, what do you look for? Like, what kind of qualities do you look for in people to know whether they're ideal partners in business or clients or fellow creatives?
That's a good question. I would say this. The first thing is, especially for a solopreneur, a solo practitioner, really in any space, but especially in this one, don't do it alone. If you have any control over that, okay? That doesn't mean you have to have a formal legal business partner. It doesn't mean you have to have a contract in place guaranteeing a cut of the take. That's not what that means. It can be a life partner. It can be a best friend. It can be a mentor. It can be a therapist. But don't do this work in a vacuum if you can avoid it. All right. That's the baseline. The second thing, what can you look for? What arguably should you look for? One thing and this is in no particular order. You should look to collaborate, in quotes, collaborate, right? With someone who knows things, can do things, can think in ways that you can't. You should try to collaborate with someone you trust. You trust to be open. You trust to be open with you. You trust to be able to give you proper critique, to critique your thinking, your ideas, your execution, your performance, and to be able to receive critique from you in return. And I think we'll probably end up coming back to this idea of critique, right? No surprise. It should be someone you trust. And then, honestly, very simply, it should be someone you fucking like, someone you want to hang out with.
Yeah.
And not just to talk shop, but to be in life with, not be in partnership with, not just be in collaboration with, but be in life with. Having beers, going for a run, playing some sport, just hanging out, or whatever it is. Whatever being in life means to you, it should be someone you want to do that with. Doesn't mean that, oh, they're going to be a part of your family. Maybe they already are a part of your family. You should just want to fucking hang out with them.
Yeah, and those are the best clients as well, right? The clients who you become friends with, pretty much.
Same go, and that's really what a client should be. A client shouldn't just be a client, it should be a collaborator. I don't know if I would say that a client needs to be a friend. I think it's a little different. I think that's a different kind of collaboration when we're talking with a client. Okay. Because if we're talking about a collaborator behind the scenes, if you have a creative or a strategic idea and you want to collaborate on it with someone, you want to get a different perspective or opinion, or you just want to brainstorm together, that's a little different. When someone's paying you for service, I think it becomes a different kind of animal, but it should still, at the very least, be a collaboration. If you like your client, if you trust your client, if you want to hang out with your client, yeah, I think that makes it even better, but you just can't lose sight of the fact that they are paying you. And that creates a dynamic that is unique and that demands a respect that you can't, not an option, right? It's not like a nice to have.
Yeah, you're there to be of service.
Yeah, for sure. But at the end of the day, none of the shit that we do should be done in a vacuum. None of it.
Yeah, I completely agree. And business is a lonely place. And one of my managers many years ago when I worked in banking, I remember her saying to me, and I didn't realize it until it really happened to me, was that the higher up you go and the more senior you become, the lonelier it is.
Sure.
And that happened to me throughout my career, but then when you step with yourself and you're working from home, it is quite isolating, and you do need peers and people to talk to and people to challenge you, but in the best way for you and for yourself personally and professionally. So I completely agree with what you're saying. And Andy, let's say that when you do find those potential clients or partners or people to collaborate with, how can you build those strong relationships to help ensure that their vision is realized? So in brand, for example, if you're creating a fabulous new brand strategy or what have you, how can you build those strong relationships to make sure that's realized?
I think it starts with that element of trust. And when you pull on that, I hate to use the word alignment, but that's the word that's coming to my Thursday brain. An alignment on kind of the philosophy of how you do the work, how they do the work. So for example, let's talk about vision for a second. Vision is strategic. But before I even talk about vision, I need to make sure that collaboration, that collaborative relationship is built on something that, to me, for me, and as a part of my philosophy, is more fundamental, which is more about obsession. Do you obsess about quality? Do you obsess about people, your customer, your team? Do you obsess about those things like I do? Usually the answer is no. And then it becomes, well, do you at least try? Is trying to be as obsessive important to you, more important to you than say, I don't know, I'll pick another thing, purpose. That's not there. I'm not really interested. And even if I were, I likely wouldn't be able to do my best work and focus on doing what I'm good at. And that becomes another part of that relationship. Before we talk about vision, let's be clear about who's doing what and why, right? So it's not talking about the purpose of the brand, the purpose of the company, it's the purpose of the collaboration itself. What do we want to accomplish and how do we want to accomplish it? I believe in another kind of philosophical foundation when I collaborate, which is you should be doing and focus mainly on the things that you can 100x crush that I can't, that I don't even want to get into. I need to follow your lead. And then the same goes for me. Example, I'm the worst marketer in the world. I don't think like a marketer. I'm not a sales guy. I believe in what the chief wrote. People hate being sold to, but they love to buy things. Well, I don't want to sell. I don't want to try to sell. I don't want to think about selling. That's not my thing. I'm not good at it. I don't like it. And so I want to be in a collaboration with someone who does, who can, who's willing and able to take that lead I follow and let me focus 100x on the things that I am good at, that I do like to do, that I know I can crush, and I can trust that they'll follow me. So all of those things have to be in place and clear before we can start talking about mission, purpose, values, blah, 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 blah. Make sense?
100%. Yes.
And there's a discipline that comes with that we hear a lot of people talk about or try to talk about, but they can't do it. And they talk so little about it, which also clues us in, right? If you're wondering, well, how can you figure this out? How can you establish that practically before you roll up your sleeves and get to work? That's what I said before. Fucking hang out with the person. Put it out on the table, right? Because if you try to play a role that's nothing more than a role in a project or in a collaboration, that's all it's ever going to be. It's so if you're going to bullshit yourself and the person you're working with, the person you're working for, then chances are the output is just going to be bullshit.
Yeah, I hear you, because probably the reason you're there is you're there, if that's the case, you're there for the paycheck. You're not there because you're obsessed about the outcome or the vision. You're there for the paycheck.
Yeah, which these days I can understand. And especially for a solopreneur, yeah, a solopreneur who's hunting and killing and can only eat what they kill. There's nothing wrong with caring as much about that as any other part. But to make things easier as a solopreneur, to make things easier for yourself going forward, doing best work, becoming known for your work, even eventually how you do the work will make it easier in the long term. Okay. But I don't say that lightly. I'm hypersensitive to the reality. And some of your solopreneurs in your audience who may be listening to this, you may be hearing the last few minutes and thinking to yourself, sounds fucking easy. For what it's worth, it's not. I know it. I get it. But it also doesn't change. That does not change how I respond to the question, right? Like I don't make the news. I'm just reporting it. Okay. And I'm not the only one who would say the exact same thing. People who would say the exact same thing are people who have proven themselves and outperformed me, outperformed Marty. I'm just recanting a truth that I and Marty and others in our space believe to be more of the truth.
Yeah, I hear that. And I love that. And I think what what I'm hearing from all of this is that, and you've said it twice, a lot of it comes back to trust in that whole process and trusting the person that you're working with. And trust takes time to establish, and but fundamentally that's what it's based on. It's trust in somebody that you like, and the critique piece that you mentioned too. In terms of circling back to that, because you did say we would, I'm going to do that, because let's say in terms of that collaboration process and creating a deliverable, taking something from ideation to execution, it's not going to be always plain sailing. And we need people to critique us to help us improve. But equally, we need to be able to give critique back and challenge why we selected things or decided on something or thought that something was a good idea. So where for you does that critique come into play and the whole collaboration piece come into play in that sense?
That's a really good question. At this point, at this point, critique can start in minute one. And I always had a sense about that. I didn't really, I didn't really realize it, or let alone allow myself to explore that until really the last 18 months. I'm sorry?
Why was that?
Because that's complicated. The simple reason is because doing what we've been doing in level C, critique has always been a part of that, but a very small part. But what we learned, what we kind of always knew along the way, and we would hear from the majority of students, is that the critique was the most valuable and really meaningful part of our learning experience. Yet it was always the smallest part. That I can't tell you why that didn't click with us sooner. I just can't. But at some point, I think last year, it clicked. And something just changed for both Marty and myself. And so now, both in the class and in our ecosystem, the Level C ecosystem, but then even with outside projects, even with through Level C collaborating with some of our guest client brands, a critique can arguably be the most powerful tool that we can bring to the work. So saying that, I see it in two ways at the same time. In one way, in one light, if it's the most, just from 80,000 feet in a very generalized sense, the most powerful tool that we can bring to the table should be used as much as possible. In the other light, a critique is not just criticism. It's not just saying, I don't like this. That sucks. Bad, right? Criticism is a part of it. In fact, it's a hyper crucial. But what a critique really is, it's an evaluation, an exploration, if you will. And it's an exploration of the thinking and the meaning behind an idea. And so that should never, it really can't be just contained to a box that's part of an assembly line process that most people, most solopreneurs, most agencies follow, right? It just shouldn't be. And yet it is. And that's a very separate conversation. But for us, we see critique, be able to use critique eventually for level C coming down the road, teaching people, teaching all of you how to really critique and how to use critique to an advantage for you and your clients, for your collaborators. It's a no-brainer.
Yeah.
Okay. And especially these days, because in this space, publicly, socially, and especially for solopreneurs, there's a pressure to put yourself out there, be seen, be heard, be recognized, be followed, right? Have your noise liked, shared, blah, blah, blah. And there's almost like an allergy now to even public critique. No one likes being challenged. No one likes being called out, not for the sake of calling out, not for the sake of trolling, not for hate's sake, but for the sake of protecting the integrity of the work we do in this space. Okay? Because it's not just other practitioners that are paying attention. It's potential clients, future clients, and collaborators. And does all of us harm, right? And I'm not talking about it could. I'm not even talking so much about it actively is. It has been. It has done us harm when more and more practitioners put out not very smart kind of dogma that colors the space for the rest of us.
Yeah.
Critique can help that, but even that's like an uphill climb. Okay. For us now, for Marty and for me, for example, we don't want to work with anyone. We won't refer anyone. We wouldn't hire anyone that doesn't have the professional and the intellectual maturity be completely involved to really get all the way in to critique.
That's interesting.
We just wouldn't.
Yeah. And Andy, I'm just wondering, as you're talking there's something that's coming to my mind. And I'm wondering, is it the people who work alone in a vacuum who are the ones who are maybe putting out, and I want to say substandard, but that's the word that's coming to my brain right now, who are putting out substandard work and maybe are less open to critique?
No.
Is there a correlation there, do you think?
No, I don't. Not that I've seen, just generally speaking, 8,000 feet. It's, and after spending really like 18 months thinking about this and having our own unique experiences, testing our ideas and our thinking about it, we can only really see it as a maturity thing. It's not about experience. It's not about, I don't even think it's so much about culture. It's really just a maturity thing.
Do you think it has something to do with validation?
Yes. But then that opens up a whole other thread. Okay. That at this point, I don't want to go down because I don't think I'm trained enough. I hate to say it, I kind of don't care enough.
Yeah.
If people are so hyper focused on validation, on being liked, on being seen, on, as we've heard some people in our space literally say, they try to frame it like they're just speaking their truth and they're being transparent. People who say, I just want to be famous.
Oh, I'm like putting a face palm here.
That was me a year ago. At this point, okay.
Yeah.
That's, you do you. Hate that cliche, but yeah, you do you. That ain't me. It ain't Marty. We don't stand for it. We don't want to feed it. And the reason is there's nothing serious about it. There's no seriousness about the work, about the meaning of the work, about the potential value of the work, and really of the unrealized value of the work. Okay? Marty and I are fucking serious about what we do.
And you're
like
really fucking good
like
at
dead fucking serious.
yeah.
And we don't need, we don't want, and we don't really care about being that resource or that community for everyone. We only care at this point about being for equally serious people. And we can't look at someone who is so obsessed with their own validation, their own noise making, the followers, the likes, the subscribers, the shares, the fame and notoriety. We don't see them as serious people. We won't see them as serious people. We wouldn't want to work with them. We don't care.
Mm-hmm.
Knock yourself out. Cool. God bless. But Marty and I will be over here doing what we do the way we do it with seriousness.
Mm-hmm.
And that's all it is at this point. That's all we wanted, to be honest.
That makes sense. And Andy, I suppose I'm wondering as well, like with the collaboration, you've been collaborating with Marty for 5 years. And what would you say have been some of the biggest challenges and rewards of collaborating with Marty and even others, the clients who've collaborated with you as well? What rewards and challenges?
With Marty, in the beginning, the greatest challenge in what we've been doing, honestly, has been like the physical distance. You can really practically only get so much done at that best serious level remotely. Okay. And it's no one's fault. Life gets in the way, things change. We all had to experience that against our will. That's probably the hardest part, because while I don't do things all the time in a vacuum, yeah, having a physical distance between the people I want to work with, like Marty, that's a challenge. Okay. But I would also say in the beginning, there was that unique kind of master and apprentice, Jedi, Padawan kind of dynamic. And I was a 40-year-old apprentice, a 40-year-old Padawan. Finding my own style, my own voice, even finding a new level of confidence to challenge the master, no to the master. That was its own unique challenge. But also along the way, also learning new ways to get out of my own way. Because as you start to develop that confidence to be able to say to the master, no, or I don't like your idea, I don't like that sketch, and here's why. The confidence that you start to develop runs the risk of becoming just unchecked ego. And so learning how to keep control of myself in ways I hadn't or was never demanded of myself, that was its own unique challenge. So all of that is like a long, exhaustive way of saying I had to grow into another different version of me. And I had to develop new skill sets that I hadn't anticipated or thought about. And I didn't have the skills to understand how best to go about developing those new skill sets. So it was a whole lot of intellectual and emotional discomfort. That was the other big challenge. I had to learn. This is what we just gave a TEDx talk about. I had to learn how I could get comfortable with being uncomfortable like that. But there comes the reward, okay? Because once I did, and it became really an equal partnership. It wasn't just one of us leading and the other following. It was both of us leading, both of us learning. And instead of a linear progression where he leads, I follow, it started to become like a tango, a dance. And we began to dance around and with each other in our thinking, in our ideation, and then trying shit. And between that and learning how to get comfortable with all of the discomfort we were facing, the uncertainty, the obsession with practicing what we preach, then you realize, oh, I can do things that most other people can't. And when you start to apply that through more of a business lens and then a brand building lens and a strategic lens, what can I do to keep myself positioned with advantage? What can I create? What can I imagine? And then what can I do that others in my space can't do even if they wanted and would not do even if they could? Then you start to really feel like power, right? Not a superpower in that cliched way, but oh, this is happening. What can I do with this? And then you begin to want to like stay up late trying to figure that out. And you wake up early, just want to jump into the next idea and try the next thing. And that has changed my life. It's changed my career in ways that if you had told me 5 years ago, literally today, that this is what would have happened, I never would have believed you. Ever. And that's at an impossibly small scale. If I sound hyperbolic, because I'm not that smart, I don't know how to say it any other way, but none of this is really all that complicated. It's just really not. Most of us tend to be really good at complicating things unnecessarily. If you can keep things simple, if you can trust not just me, not just a Marty, not just whatever influencers or mentors or authors or whoever that you follow. The most important thing, I think, at this point is to trust you. So I fell into this thing recently talking about philosophy. There's this kind of philosophical principle, and it's rooted in the philosophy of Stoicism, right? Being stoic. Socratic philosopher Seneca wrote, the philosopher Seneca was a student of Socrates, and Seneca drafted his own kind of principles of Hellenic Stoicism. And one of the principles he wrote was follow your demon.
Interesting.
I hadn't heard that before a few weeks ago.
Right.
And when I saw that phrase, follow your demon, I became obsessed with that for multiple reasons. But following your demon is basically all about following your inner voice, following yourself before you follow others. And so for me, I boil that down to trusting your gut. For you, and for others in level C, and even people outside of this community, the role of your gut is specific, right? When we talk about brand, gut has a meaning. It's simplify it. Doesn't matter whether you're talking about a brand and your customer's gut, like everyone else's gut, or business side of the equation, where it's not even so much about their gut, it's about your gut. If a brand is the customer's gut feeling about who you are, what you do, blah, 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 and branding is what we do, what the company can do to shape that gut feeling, then you know what? As the ones who are doing the shaping, our guts matter too. And the reason they matter is because that's where the fucking ideas come from.
Yeah.
Okay? So this idea of following your demon, trusting your gut, has become very powerful for us. You're probably the first outside of the TED Talk to hear it, and you're not going to be the last, because your demon, your gut, it will be a voice of reason, but it will also be that voice of revolution. We all dig that, right? Being revolutionary. Well, where does that come from? You have to be able to follow yourself before you should even expect yourself to follow someone else.
Mhm.
And here's the thing, would you really trust someone else's gut feeling before your own? Right? The other thing about your demon is your demon will never, ever settle for mediocrity. It will be yelling at you if you try to settle for mediocrity. It won't compromise on quality. It won't allow anyone to copy it because it's really uncopyable. No one can copy your demon. Okay. And then, not for nothing, demon sounds scary and dangerous and bad. That's human. We all have that dark side. And sometimes the best ideas, they're born in the dark. And you have to go get them. You have to be comfortable enough. There's that theme again, right? You have to be able to get comfortable with the discomfort of navigating in the dark, seeing in the dark, dancing in the dark. And you have to be comfortable enough with that. You don't have to like it. You have to be comfortable enough because sometimes just that's where the ideas are. In a place that you wouldn't necessarily look. Everyone wants to see it in front of them. Everyone wants to see it in light. It's not reality. So at the end of the day, it's a really long way coming back around to your question. What has been the most rewarding thing? Figuring out things like that. Because now I have a clarity and kind of a drive that I didn't have a few weeks ago. That will let me do things in ways that my competitors, they'll never be able to do, ever. It feels really good.
Yeah.
It's exciting. For all of the challenge, there were none of these things have shortcuts or hacks or templates or formulas or checklists to follow. Okay? So for your audience listening, well, all of the templates and formulas out there, they're only going to get you so far. But if you really just rely mainly on that, I'd wish you good luck, but good luck won't help you.
Yeah, that's powerful, Andy. I really do think it's powerful. And I think growth comes from discomfort, because if we always do the things that we're comfortable with, then we're probably not trying new things that make us feel a little bit uncomfortable. So I love that. Follow your demon. I'm going to be quoting you a lot on that part, Andy, I can tell you.
Go ahead. We're going to be quoting ourselves, and we're going to be quoting Seneca a lot going forward.
I have one final question just before we wrap up. And that final question is, what advice would you give to individuals, businesses, solopreneurs who are looking to collaborate with others, be it on business ideas, branding initiatives, you name it?
So you've heard this from us too. Start with the simplest, easiest, and most inviting question that you can. What if? What if we tried this? What if we tried this? Hey, what if you and I tried this? Just what if? Like, think about it. At some point, one guy said to another guy, what if we put water in a beer can and called it liquid death? What if we design this thing to do this thing for this company, for these people, blah, blah, blah? What if you and I met up at a coffee shop for a few hours and talked about blah, 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 strategy, blah, 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 vision, design, blah, 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 blah? What if it's like cloud-based imagination cocaine?
I'm like, light bulbs, that's all I'm picturing.
If someone starts talking to you and starts with what if, your brain's going to start firing. It's literally that simple.
I love that. Andy, you're such a pleasure to speak to, and I'm sure listeners have gotten so much from tuning into today's episode. And tell us what's coming up for you. What's happening with Level C in the months ahead?
Oh, so we're talking right now we're recording this a couple months before everyone's going to hear it. So this is going to be for us a black dot summer. We're going into black dot mode. You know what that
Tell
is.
us, what does that mean? Because
You tell me. I want to see. Do you know what black dot mode? What the black dot is? No.
No,
We're sleeping on the first day of class, Deirdre. Come on.
I was late.
The dot.
Which
dot do you notice first? Dot.
for Andy.
Black dot mode for us is we're changing a lot of things. We've actually already started changing things. We just haven't told people yet. And some of the things that we started to change, they're already visible. But a lot of things aren't yet. And so this summer for us is going to be a black dot mode kind of summer. We are changing things so that we can remain and even more clearly be recognized as being the black dot in a sea of white dots. So we have things coming. And then later in the fall, we're going to bring our classes back. We are looking to do Master Class 3, which is currently our highest level class, and building a whole weekend of community building and fun around that, like we did in Vienna last year. And we just did a long weekend gathering in Milan, which was awesome. We didn't even do a class. We just said, we're going to be in Milan. Who wants to come hang out? A lot of people came just to hang out with us, which was awesome. So we want to keep doing that more and more. And so for us, I think we're starting to build towards doing that in Los Angeles in the mid to late fall. So stay tuned for that. That's what we're doing. It's a lot of work, a lot of thinking and originating, but yeah, we just keep prototyping and testing. And that's the thing. Everyone is in such a rush and pressure to finish and be finished. But remember what you heard from us. That's like my F word, like final. Nothing is ever final. Nothing we do is ever finished. We're always trying new things and trying to keep things as fresh and impactful as we can. So the summer for us, it's a time to do that. We'll do it unplugged, relax, and that's especially for solopreneurs. I know what it means to be a solopreneur. I know what it means to be a small business owner. So you constantly feel like you have to keep going. And stopping unplugging more and more feels like luxury we can't afford. But you need to. And the reason is chemically, physiologically, our ability to be creative, disruptive, right? It has a fuel tank. And when it's empty, you can't manufacture that. You can't force it. So literally unplugging, and I do mean literally, no screens, sometimes literally doing nothing, almost being bored. There's a physiological argument to actually boring yourself, because then your creative tank just fills, right? And so for your audience, I hope you all gave yourself the opportunity to be bored and unplug over the summer. And if you didn't, then right now, turn this off, Deirdre. Turn this off and do nothing for 48 hours. Stare at the ceiling. Get yourself worked up with anxiety about being bored. It will serve you when you plug back. So that's what we're doing.
Yeah, fantastic. That sounds amazing. And it prompted me to go back now and listen to the master classes all over again.
Oh, I mean, I don't want to ruler across the hands with you on your podcast, but black dot.
Yeah, I missed the first hour on day one, and I did go back.
Oh, okay, all right.
Things. Yeah, I had a client, and clients came first. But yeah, I'm definitely going to go back and listen to it, because the tools and templates, whilst they'll only get you so far, and this is kind of similar to what I say to my clients, they'll only get you so far. Sometimes when you're just at that intersection, to use your phrase from earlier, sometimes those tools can help you determine which direction to go. And it's just sometimes that's all you need as a launch pad to get you towards your vision. Andy,
100%.
it's been such a pleasure. Thank you again for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Wow, that was an incredible conversation with Andy. We explored the power of brand, the importance of collaboration, and the magic that happens when you trust your gut and just go all in for the discomfort. So, folks, your high impact action today is to start thinking about your brand just beyond a logo. Think about what's your unique story or your demon. And remember, it's definitely worth your while looking for collaborators who will challenge you and help you grow. Now, if you want to take on another high impact action, I challenge you. This is my challenge from me, is to carve out some black dot time in your calendar. Disconnect, let your mind wander, leave your phone away. Don't let your phone go anywhere near you, and just tap into your creative genius. You might be seriously surprised at the innovative ideas that start to emerge when you create that space for yourself. If you're hungry for more branding insights, be sure to check out Level C on LinkedIn. And if Andy's message inspired you at all today, share this episode with your network. Let's empower more entrepreneurs to build brands that are totally uncopyable, stand out, and stand the test of time. And lastly, if you enjoyed today's show, please leave us a rating and a review on your favorite podcast platform. It helps us spread the word and reach more people just like you. Until next time, keep mastering your business and your brand.